Hey, good day. My name is Marty Walser, also known as Raging Owlbear on social media, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about BattleTech and Alpha Strike. This is sort of part of my alternatives to D&D series, except technically BattleTech and Alpha Strike aren't an alternative to D&D because they're not role-playing games. There's a caveat to that. I'll get to that in a minute. They are miniature combat games played on the tabletop, but I wanted to talk about them because there's some things coming up which I think are pretty cool and exciting, and there's a lot that Catalyst has going on. Um, so I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about BattleTech, especially because recently I got the chance to play some Alpha Strike again with a friend of mine, and wanted to talk about that experience as well. Um, but for those of you who are not that familiar with BattleTech and Alpha Strike, or may have heard of it but really don't know about it, it is a miniature combat game, and you have these giant robots with guns and all kinds of, I mean, some of them even had melee weapons, but really primarily have guns and missiles and whatnot, and you put them on a giant battlefield, on your table, and you kind of move them around and roll the dice and shoot each other and whatnot. Um, so the one thing that is kind of cool about what they've done recently with BattleTech is they have actually come out with a couple of new box sets just in the last few years. And they actually recently kickstarted another new box set, which should be coming out at the end of this year, maybe trickling into 2021. I don't know exact delivery dates. They're still working on getting some of that stuff, obviously out of China and whatnot with all the delays, the pandemic related stuff. But the box sets that they've put out in the last couple of years were based on the what are called the secession wars in BattleTech. So they have what are called inner sphere mechs, and the box set that's coming out fairly soon is called the Clan Invasion box, where they have mechs that are coming from the outside of the main sort of galaxy, this invasion of these other folks who have fancy mechs and come in and start really stomping on the existing political structure and making things very difficult. That's just one of the things that if you're coming into BattleTech for the first time, there is a huge amount of lore. I mean, literally a millennial of lore. I mean, from 30 the year what 33,000 3025 to what 30, yeah, actually I don't even know what the I don't actually keep track of all of the lore. I just like the tabletop game. I'm not as into all the intricacies of the political stuff, but it's hundreds of years of histories, and the secession wars are sort of the beginning part of the lore, where it talks about the grand houses of the inner sphere who fight each other for territory and over old, grudges and whatnot. And then you expand out and you have what are called the periphery and whatnot. And I almost said outer rim, which is Star Wars. But the idea is, yeah, you get further and further out, and you have, much more sporadic stuff. And then later you had, like I said, the Clan Invasion, which are this group of BattleTech, these people who had left the inner sphere long ago, and their descendants are coming back, and they have better tech and whatnot. And then and there's stuff even beyond that, like there's the jihad and the dark something or other, and there's all these eras where the technology is a specific way. So you can play, if you really get deep into it, you can play specific battle mechs from specific eras and try to say, okay, we're only going to use the technology that's available in this part of the lore or in this part of the lore. Honestly, I don't know. For me, that wasn't as much of an attraction as much as I just wanted to get a bunch of guys on the table shooting at each other. That's the attraction I have towards BattleTech. I don't, people might look at me askance and be like, "What? You're like BattleTech and you're not into lore?" No, it is what it is. It's just sort of window dressing for me. But for a lot of people, it's really hardcore. There's novels. There's stuff in the major rules. There's campaign books that talk about the various different wars that are going on, and you know, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just quickly talk about the box sets. And one second, I dropped. Oh, there it is. Sorry. So several years back, actually, I think this is almost 10 years ago now, I actually purchased the introductory box set. I played BattleTech a couple times, but I didn't own a lot of BattleTech. And I purchased the introductory box set, and this was, like I said, this is one from many years back. 25th anniversary. So this is way back when. But the nice thing about this particular box set, is it came with a lot of plastic minis. It actually had 24 plastic minis of, you know, these sort of molded plastic minis, which are fairly cheap. And then it had two, like, sort of nicer plastic minis, one that was pre-assembled and one that you could kind of assemble and put your own guns and whatnot onto. And you know, Catalyst, you know, to their credit, it was a quality product. It had these really nice terrain boards, like very thick, heavy cardstock game boards for playing on. You know, and they came out with several other things, and I think they actually, this was a loss leader. It was either very close to break even, or maybe even a tiny bit of loss on some of the box sets they sold. But the whole idea is they were trying to bring people into the game. But they learned a few things, because they didn't make very much money on it at the time, and they wanted to do a little better. And especially some of the miniatures, they gave a lot of miniatures, which was really cool, because you got a range of the lights. The miniatures come in light, medium, heavy, and assault in terms of the mech sizes. And you know, with 24 of these plastic miniatures, and actually 26 counting the high quality ones, there was really a great array of minis available to somebody coming into the game. I mean, this was a really great box set for the time, you know, I mean, well worth the money. But again, they weren't making very much money on it, and they had to kind of pull back and decide how they were going to move forward with BattleTech. And so, as I noted a few years back, they reintroduced the BattleTech with the BattleTech Beginner Box, and the BattleTech a game of armored combat box, which is a little bit more. And the Beginner Box only had two plastic minis, and then some cardboard stand-ups for representing minis. But the quality of the minis was fantastic. And let me show you. Just these are the two of the minis that come in the introductory beginner box. It's what's called a Wolverine and a Griffin, which are mediums, but they're on the very high end of the medium. They're almost a heavy mech. The mechs that weigh in certain weight classes, again, light, medium, heavy, and assault. These were 55-ton mechs, and so they're very much on the high end of a medium mech and the low end of a heavy mech. But you know, as I noted, these miniatures were really high quality. And to give you sort of a comparison and contrast between the box set, the 25th anniversary box set that I purchased, and the newer box set. Oh, sorry, getting ahead of myself. So the basic one only has two, but a Game of Armored Combat box set actually comes with 8 of the high quality minis. So these are really, really nice, and I'll show you some more close-ups. But to give you an idea, so that comes with 8 of these nice newer castings of the minis, and then as well as some cardboard, you know, so you can have a bigger combat. But to give you to show you an idea of how the old minis compared, you know, the old minis were very much like the kind of plastic that you might get from, you know, any Chinese manufacturer that's just throwing out some very cheap plastic toys out there on the market. And so to save money, you know, they wanted to put a lot of minis in that introductory box set. To save money, they went with a fairly cheap plastic. And so, like, as an example, this is called the Catapult. It's a very iconic mech that was from the game, and this is the sort of the 25th anniversary suits. It's kind of like fairly cheap molded plastic. And again, this was many years ago, and miniature technology has really come a long way in the last 10 years or so. So just due to all of the the 3D software and stuff like that. That's now super easy to use and super cheap to use. Well, and here's the new Catapult that comes in the Game of Armored Combat, the 8 mini one. And so when you look at the two of them sort of side by side, you know, obviously the newer one is also heftier and just a much higher quality sculpt. It's got, you know, really nice detail. You know, for a plastic mini, you know, there are some higher quality metal, obviously, minis out there that you can purchase. But honestly, these ones here, there's a little bit of mold flashing that you may have to play with and you know, touch it up with paint, obviously, because they come unpainted. But they're honestly just really great minis. And when you look at the old versus the new, I mean, there isn't much of a comparison. Again, I'm not knocking Catalyst because that old set had 24 of these, 26. Sorry, I always forget the two. Really, they actually did have two very high quality minis that came in the set. But you know, 26 minis in the base rules for the price that it was at the time. But let me give you another. So that was the Catapult is a heavy. It's a missile mech primarily, and then this is I believe the Awesome is an assault. So here's like the old Awesome, and actually mine is missing one of his arms. So I have a little bit of battle damage. I actually still have the arm. I just need to glue it back. Sorry. But so here you see the old Awesome, which is an assault style mech. And now look at the chunky new Awesome in comparison. So let me put them side by side. And this bad boy, obviously, this guy has missed his arm day and his leg day, clearly. And this guy has been at the gym really working it. And so, you know, again, these new sculpts are just phenomenal. And let me just show you one of the lastly, one of the lighter mechs. And this is I believe this is a Commando, although some of the smaller mechs that have this form factor look very similar. So I'm not 100% positive both these are Commandos, but they're basically the same style of mech. And this is the older sort of, you know, army man style casting, and this is the newer. And you know, one of the things that you might also notice about the newer mechs is that the old castings, to keep the molds fairly simple, don't have very dynamic poses. They're pretty much arms mostly at their side. There's a few that have them slightly raised, but they're very flat. When you this is a hunchback from the old set. I don't have one of the new hunchbacks yet, but this is a hunchback from the old set. And see, it's very, you know, it's very flat and it's not very dynamic. And they did definitely with the newer minis, they really tried to, you know, give some, you know, movement effect. Their stances, you know, are, you know, while they're not like running or necessarily, they've got these sort of battle stances or at least movement stances. So they really did a good job of, you know, and then here's another sort of big chunky fella. Oh, and yeah, here's another small mech. This is the Cicada, I believe, or Flea. And I think I'm sorry, not Cicada. Dang it. It'll come to me. I now have Cicada in my brain, but it's not Cicada. It's not a Cicada. But it'll come to me. But that's one of the smaller mechs. You know, one of the lights. So quick and just on the tip of my tongue. It's going to bother me. But moving on. So these new box sets with these new minis are just phenomenal. And you know, again, so the basic box just has the beginner box just has the two, and then it has a few cardboard standees. And these are, like I said, the Wolverine and the Griffin. And the bigger box also has a Wolverine. I think it actually has both a Wolverine and a Griffin as well. Okay, yeah, I see the Wolverine. Does it have the Griffin? All right, it may not have the Griffin. but it does have, the other one does, the Wolverine appears in both, so you get, if you were to buy both. Here's the thing. If you already have BattleTech, when I was at a con last year, and when cons were still a thing, you could actually purchase the miniatures from Catalyst without purchasing the box sets all over again. Because I had the introductory box set and the rule books, you know, some of the campaign books and whatnot. I just wanted the newer miniatures. And at the Catalyst booth, they actually offered miniatures. They also offered a miniature only option in the Kickstarter that they just did. Now that's over. And I will look up to see if there's any late pledges in case anybody's interested in getting the miniatures. I don't believe so. I think late pledging is closed completely. But I expect they will, because they're printing the whole literal boatloads from China of the new minis, both clan minis and Inner Sphere minis, that they'll probably have the ability for you to purchase some of these smaller sets again. And I think at the time I paid, let's see, it was 8, 9, 10, it was 10 minis. I think I paid about $40. So it's only about $4 per mini, which is a good deal for these particular castings. And again, you get, you know, the box set actually gets you, actually, I think it was even less than $40, because the box set you can pay, depending upon where you can find it. If you find it cheap, if you're able to catch one of the cheaper sides, it can be as low as about $45. It's as high as about 60. It retails for about $60. But sometimes Amazon has it for as low as about 45. I'm going to put links on the video, so if people want to purchase, you know, they can get, and yeah, even with a $60 box, you get the 8 minis, you get some of the cardboard standees, you get maps, you get some other things with it. So even at the higher price, it's well worth it. If you can find it at 45, it's a no-brainer. If you see the fuller box set, the eight mini box set at $45, absolutely pick it up. It's well worth it. And I will link to some places that have it for sale. Again, I don't know if anybody has it for sale for 45 right this moment, but I think it's close. I think it's close to, I think you can find it for about 50 right now. So it may be worthwhile for you. Now, the one thing about BattleTech, for those who aren't as familiar with it, it does have a bit of a steep learning curve. There's a lot going on because you're managing guns, you're managing when you're firing guns, stuff like that, your mech is generating heat, and you can only have so much heat before you shut down, and if you shut down you're gonna die, and stuff like that. There's a lot of things, and there's movement, there's this combat combat variables, you know, +1, -1 on the dice for movement, for jumping, for doing, you know, various things, stuff like that. So it does have a little bit of a learning curve. The basic box set does not deal with heat. It just ignores heat completely, because it's just trying to introduce you to the mechanics of movement and firing. So there's no heat in the basic set. Of course, the regular set, the $45 to $60 set, has the heat mechanics within it. Because the basic set only has the beginner box only has the quick start rules, which does not address heat, as far as I know. I don't have a copy of the beginner box. Again, I just bought the minis, but from what I know, it does not address heat. Especially the older quick start versions didn't address heat as well. So I'm basing some of that on my knowledge of the previous quick starts. But there's one other thing. So we're not just talking about BattleTech, because again, like I said, BattleTech is a pretty steep learning curve. There's a lot of moving things, moving parts to it. There is, I did it again. Sorry, I'm gonna be rude and reach across again because I wanted to grab, sorry, the mech sheets. So when you look at the sort of advanced game where you're keeping track of heat, you know, you have all the armor, hit location stuff. You know how much armor you pick off armor for all the damage you take. You have internal structure stuff. So once you've penetrated the armor, now the internals are getting damaged. There's the critical hit tables, and so there's a lot of moving parts in the BattleTech game. So it's a very, very crunchy miniatures combat game, and it can, if you have a lot of mechs on the table, if you're playing with either a larger group of people or people playing with multiple mechs, it is a longer game. It is a very much a longer game, especially if you're not very experienced. If you don't have some experienced players at the table to bring you along. And this is why I wanted to sort of segue over into the other offering that they have, and that's called Alpha Strike. So this is the Alpha Strike rulebook, and it's a companion game to BattleTech. It uses the BattleTech miniatures. It uses a lot of the same rules, but it's kind of BattleTech light. They distilled and simplified some things. Because like as I showed you with BattleTech, there's hit location stuff, there's internal and external damage, there's the heat, there's the whole 9 yards. And so there's a fair amount of complexity in it. And don't get me wrong, I love BattleTech. I think the crunchiness is part of the fun if you're into that style of game. However, Alpha Strike really said, we want to get a game that, because it's a longer game, because BattleTech is a longer game, it's a more complex game. It's not something that gets thrown out on the table a lot unless you have really hardcore fans. And Catalyst realized that, we need something that can get put on the table, set up, played in a couple hours, and you're done. Because board gaming is huge, but the thing is that people just don't have the kind of time or energy sometimes to put in a 4-hour plus game, or even a 4-hour game. So the design idea of Alpha Strike is, can you have 2 people jump in, play a game, and get it done in about 2 hours? And the answer is absolutely yes, you can. And it'll still feel like BattleTech. It may not be as deep, may not be as complex, it may not have some of the strategy that BattleTech has, because there's a lot of firing arc stuff and weapon mount, weapon placement, and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that Alpha Strike kind of hand waves away in order to make a simpler rule set, so you don't quite have all the same strategies. But you play it in like 2 hours, and it's fun, and it's fairly quick. My friend and I played it just before all the lockdown-ish stuff happened, late March. I wish I had taken more pictures of that night of the setup, because we threw some terrain on the table. We each picked a couple mechs which have point values, and I'll show you that in a second. We picked a couple mechs that have point values, put mechs on the table, started running at each other and just pew pew pew, just a skirmish with a heavy and a light medium-ish mech each, just to see how it played. We were learning the rules as we went. I mean, I had read through the core stuff, but we were kind of learning as we went, trying to be like, okay, let's see if we can just play it and see how much we stumble through it. And we did. We played in about 2 hours, including the stuff that I was teaching him what I knew, and then we were looking up rules when we weren't clear about something. And with all that, we still played in about maybe a little over 2 hours, which is really great, because what it means is that you could have a much bigger battle once you have a little bit of experience and still play under. And these are, as an example, I wanted to show, these are the size of the mech sheets. You saw those full page sheets which had all the hit location on them. These are the mech sheets for Alpha Strike. They're credit card, playing card sized things. You have your armor, your external armor, and your internal structure. So, once they get past all your armor, they start doing structure damage. You have your basic combat statistics here, and some other stuff over here, internal critical hit damage, stuff like that. But all of that fitting on a poker-sized, roughly, game card. This is the Atlas Assault Mech. And it even does have some heat but heat works a little bit different in Alpha Strike than it does in BattleTech. But the thing is that we each picked 2 of these little cards for the mechs that we were running. I actually sleeved them. I think you can dry erase on top of these cards because they're very glossy and stuff like that. But you know, I'm anal, so I've sleeved them, and we did dry erase right on the sleeves to mark off our stuff. You know, piece of cake. You could Xerox copy them if you want or whatever. It's Xerox. I'm showing my age, but you know, I think even Catalyst will be providing. Well, I don't want to say, they may have some PDFs that have on their website eventually that have some of these cards, so you can just print out a bunch of them. But I honestly don't know about that. But these cards that we got came from, again, I was at the con and I purchased. They had the clan cards and the Succession War cards, and it came with about 100 mechs, like each. So I have like 100 Inner Sphere mechs. Here's the box with all the cards. It has some pilots and some other stuff in there too, but about 100 mechs of, actually it may even be, well, yeah, like there's variants. So the front side, this is an Atlas A, and this is an Atlas D. So yeah, these are technically 2 different build outs of the same mech. But yeah, I have clan mechs, I have Inner Sphere mechs. They have a point value on them. Let's see. Oh yeah, it's a little hard to see in the camera, but they have a point value up top. So you could just assign a budget. You say, okay, build a lance with 150 points, and this assault mech is 50. So maybe 150 is high. Maybe you could say, yeah, no, 150 is probably about right, because you have like an assault, which is probably 50. You know, a heavy, which is in the 30 to 50 range, 30 to 40 some range. A medium, which is, you know, again, almost 30ish, and a light, which is in the 20s. And so, you know, boom, 4 mechs, light, medium, heavy, assault, 150 points. Both of you pick 150 points worth of stuff. Boom, you got 4, each got 4 mechs on the table, and you start to just shoot each other. The nice thing about it is that, again, with BattleTech, you have these hex grid, and there's a lot of movement. There's, you know, oh, I have 10 movement points, so 1, 2, 3, turn, 1, 4, 5, you know, it's a lot of very finicky. Blah, 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 blah. With Alpha Strike, it's like I have a 6-inch piece of dowel rod with inches marked off or whatever, and yeah, my guy can move 6 inches, you know, or whatever, or 8 inches or whatever it is. But basically, all you need is a little stick with your inches marked off, or a ruler, or a piece of string even, and you just say, start them here, move them to the end, boom, there's your movement, or whatnot. So it doesn't worry about hexes. It doesn't worry about facing. Well, it has facing, but you don't have to count your movement points to do facing. It just says move your mech and then point him in the direction that he's going to stop. You know, and then you throw some stuff out on the table to represent woods or lake or whatever, stuff like that. You know, and they could be little flat paper tiles that they have in the box sets, or you could, if you have some wargaming stuff, you know, throw out some styrofoam, some little, you know, pretend trees. These are actually made out of dishwasher sponges and painted and flocked and stuff like that, because I like miniature combat and D&D terrain stuff. So I've got some terrain. We grabbed some, oh, you know, you could also take, you know, I had some Hero Quest stuff, Heroescape stuff, and we built some hills, you know, with Hero Quest. But again, you could build the hills with styro, with whatever you want, you know, with a blanket over, you know, a 12-pack of Coke. The point is that you have a table, you put some things on the table to represent terrain or blocking terrain features, and you can go as fancy or low tech as you want. You know, a shoebox is a building, whatever, you know, put some things out there for them to run around through, and boom, you got a game. And you know, like I said, you can play it in a couple hours, maybe a little bit longer if you had a lot of mechs out there and you're still new. But you know, we each had 2 mechs. We were learning the game. We got it done in like 2 hours. So, long story short, I'm really excited that the Clan Invasion box is coming out, because I'm going to have clan mechs now that match my cards. I'm going to have more I bought some more Inner Sphere mechs. The Catalyst store is bound to have more minis in it. I'm hoping that someday we get to play at cons again with people. But the really what I was trying to say is that, you know, if you like big stompy rope, if you like miniature games, miniature combat games, Alpha Strike doesn't have the same learning curve. It does still have a little bit of a curve, but it's not huge. It's a thick book, but only because there's a lot of stuff that you actually don't use. This is a pretty complete book because it has ground, it has the big stompy robot mechs, but it also has ground troop rules and flying vehicle rules. It has a bunch of stuff that if you're just playing the base game, you won't use. So it is a thick book, but actually the basic core rules are not super complex. And the nice thing about it is if you learn Alpha Strike, some of those rules drift right into BattleTech because the initiative is basically the same. Some of the terrain effects and some of the movement effects in terms of adding to the dice or subtracting from the dice are similar. So if you want to just go with the base game and get some of the minis, the base Alpha Strike game, hold on. There you go. Caught him in my arm. You can do that. You know, I'm hoping the Catalyst has the minis again on their store so that people can purchase those without necessarily buying the whole BattleTech rule set again, especially if you already have it. And you just want to get these cool new minis. I really like Alpha Strike. I have to say, it's a really nice trimmed back version. I mean, you know, you can play with this. You can play with these cards, with your mech cards, and like a 2-page rules reference. There's like there's a 2-page rules reference. Actually, I should have been prepared because they even have the charts in the middle here. That basically they have 2 pages that have, you know, the charts that you need. They're probably even in the back. But like I said, once you've sort of read through the rules, and you know, you can print out your own mech cards if you don't have these little box sets with all the cards, and then here's some of the reference tables. Again, you won't use all of them. The base game needs maybe 2 to 3 pages of these reference tables. You know, you need the terrain modifiers, the movement modifiers, the critical, whatever. The point is this Alpha Strike version of BattleTech is for those people who, and it uses all the same lore. So if you are into the BattleTech lore, it's all there. Like I said, the only thing it really moves out is some of the complexity of damage and heat and whatnot. And there is heat. I'll just very quickly diverge. You know, with these cards, the mech does basically a static amount of damage unless you purposely want to try to overheat your mech a little bit, and then you can get some more damage. And so that represents basically turning on more of your guns and lasers and whatnot. So you're pushing your heat levels by utilizing more of your guns in a single turn. So if you don't generate any heat, you do like whatever 1, 2, 3 points of damage, something like that. You push your gun, each like level of heat that you sort of push up adds like another point of damage or whatnot, until you can actually shut down your mech and take damage if you get too hot. But it simulates the complexity of the original BattleTech game, of the heat management in the original BattleTech game, without making it super complex. It's just like 3 levels of heat, and then your mech shuts down, and then you could have an overheat, damage situation. So it's been about 30 minutes, I think. Yeah. So I'm going longer than I wanted to go, but I just wanted to say, check out the BattleTech stuff. It's great. Oh, and while we're social distancing and if you're not meeting with your regular game group, which you probably shouldn't be anyways, but there are ways to play this online as well. Tabletop Simulator has battle maps and mechs, so you could move mechs around, and if you each have your own little cards here, whatnot, you get your Alpha Strike cards, or you or you purchase the PDF. You know, again, the PDFs are for sale from the Catalyst site. And as a matter of fact, I think if you purchase the hardcover from Catalyst, you get the PDF for free. And hopefully these cards will be on sale from the Catalyst site. They're not on their store site currently. But I'm wondering if now that they're getting the new Kickstarter stuff coming in fairly soon, fingers crossed, that some of that other stuff will also get restocked. I'm probably I may send out an email to them just to get an update to see if I can put something in the links in my video. But oh yeah, so Tabletop Simulator, which is a board game 3D board game simulator, has some BattleTech and Alpha Strike stuff that you could get. Tabletop Simulators on Steam. There is the official BattleTech video game, which has player versus player combat. So you can. I actually haven't played the PvP. I've started playing the single player campaign. I haven't played the PvP of the BattleTech video game. And actually I found the BattleTech video game on sale just a little while ago for about 15-20 bucks. I think it's back up to its 30 something right now, but every once in a while it dips down, has a sale, so you can pick it up for fairly cheap. And again, it has a 2-player PvP. It may even have multiplayer PvP, where you can move your mechs on the terrain and do all stuff. And again, it's turn-based, so you don't have to play the full game in real time. You can play some of the game, be like, okay, let's meet again, in a few days and finish or whatever. You can save your progress as far as I know. So that's the BattleTech game. There's also MechWarrior Online, which is more of a first-person shooter. It's not quite as, true to the lore, obviously, or the combat, because it's just a first-person shooter of a MechWarrior game, MechWarrior Online. And now there's MechWarrior 5, which is another online video game. And honestly, I don't know very much about that. I don't know what the PvP component is versus the campaign mode. So like that, it's only been out for a little bit, and I haven't looked into that one very much. I do enjoy the BattleTech, and the part of the campaign that I played so far, I have enjoyed it. Although I got stuck on one battle that just kicks my ass, and I've had to go back to the earlier save and see if I can get through it again. So even if you are distancing from your tabletop friends, there are ways to play this online. Again, Tabletop Simulator is actually you and your buddy moving the things around in a 3D virtual environment. The BattleTech game has the rules built in. So yeah, but again, if you have one of your friends that you're distancing and they're distancing, and the two of you, you can meet and wait 14 days for your quarantine or whatever. But the point is that it's a game you can play on the tabletop, and under a couple hours, you can throw out some terrain, some styrofoam, some trees, something that you got from Michael's craft store or whatever, throw whatever on the table, and boom, you got yourself a battle. So, BattleTech, if you want the really super crunchy, and you're into the heavy miniature combat stuff, and of course those have the minis. Those box sets have the minis right now, and can't get the minis right now separately at the moment. But Alpha Strike, definitely for the light rules that play quick, couple hours, check it out. So, like and subscribe if you like my stuff. Actually, even if you don't like my stuff, just like it. What does it hurt? It doesn't hurt you. It just helps me, give me a little more exposure. But yeah, I do videos on D&D and other tabletop role-playing games. I talk about miniature games, not very often, but this is one thing I wanted to talk about just for fun. And I'm doing a Twitch series where I'm just playing video games online. And I'm playing MechWarrior, as a matter of fact. MechWarrior Online is one of them. And I might do MechWarrior 5 eventually down the pike, depending. So, I've been Marty Walser, Raging Owlbear on social media, and Twitter and Twitch. And so, check out more of my videos where I talk about D&D. Or don't. Give me a like. Thanks, I appreciate it. Have a good night.